Lunar Light Entertainment proudly presents the 100-Day Magical Challenge, Pathways of the Magi. And we are live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome, aspirant. This is a part of the Pathways of the Magi 100-Day Magical Challenge. I'm your host for the hour, Fredo Francis Lunas Aristeas of the OTA, broadcasting today from Twilight Zone Old Peking, deep within the central kingdom of the Celestial Dragon. Welcome, wanderer, wayfarer, wizard, and warrior alike, whoever you are, wherever you are, and whenever you may be receiving this transmission. Go ahead and take a minute to find yourself a place to relax and maybe throw on your headphones. We will be doing the 30-second path of the Tree of Life, Malkuth Tuyasad. The Hebrew alphabetic key for this one is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Tau, or the cross. So try to imagine that letter in your mind right now. The spiritual significance is the planet Saturn. So we're starting way out there at the end of the planetary alignments as observed by the ancients. The theory here is Great One of the Night of Time, and it connects with the 21st key of the tarot, the universe. The colors are going to be indigo, black, blue, black rayed blue. The text for this one is the 32nd path is the administrative intelligence, and it is so called because it directs and associates the motions of the 7 planets, directing all of them in their proper courses. And following Pathways of the Magi, you'll soon discover that we follow the path of the great universal concourse, right? The cosmic swirl. It's undeviating in its perfection from ancient times, from time immemorial, till well into the future. So it's a balancing principle known as universal or heavenly law that we can easily follow just by looking up and remembering the old Hermetic axiom, as above, so below. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Take a deep breath. Hold 1, 2, 3, relax. Do that as many times as you like, typically 3, right? 3 sets of 3. And inhale, hold, 2, 3, and relax. One more time, and inhale, 2, 3, hold, and relax. So once you're feeling relaxed and in tune with your trance state, let's go ahead and get started. Number 1, this path joins Malkuth, the physical world, and Yasad, the universal unconscious and etheric web which forms the foundation of physical existence. It is therefore a path of introversion from the sensory consciousness to the consciousness of the deeps of the inner world. When one treads it, one is boring down into the unconscious mind, and many and strange are the things that one may meet there. 2. It is like the hole in the earth into which Alice fell, leading to her strange adventures in Wonderland. It is also, on a mythological level, the way down to the underworld, trod by Oedipus at Colonus, Orpheus in search of Eurydice, and many others. But primarily it is Persephone's descent into the world of Pluto, the king of the underworld. Alice indeed might be said to be a modern version of Persephone, for Carol was a writer who wrote of the deeps of the unconscious mind. 3. The path is also the way of psychoanalysis and shows the difference between the Freudian and Jungian techniques. For when the unconscious images of Yasad are met with the Freudian tries to analyze them, with reference to life history in Malkuth, daily living. But the Jungian process follows the images through until they become symbols of transformation, leading to the psychic harmony of Tifereth. In other words, the Jungian technique is, or should be, a pressing on to the 25th path, Yesod to Tifereth. After the way in, the 32nd path, Malkuth to Yesod, has been trodden. 4. The importance of Persephone is that she was the daughter of the Earth Mother Demeter, and the whole of this path is intimately connected with Earth through the Sephirah Malkuth. It is linked to Yesod, which means the foundation not only of physical existence, but of the whole of the higher worlds, whose emanations are reflected in Yesod. 5. Yesod is the moon's Sephirah reflective, magnetic, of hidden power. It is the earliest known version of the myth, the Homeric hymn to Demeter. The nearest witness to the rape, apart from the sun, who sees all, was Hecate, who, seated in her cave, heard the cries of the virgin victim. Hecate is, of course, a goddess of the moon. 6. There is, therefore, a strong connection between this myth and the 32nd path, and it is significant that this myth was the foundation of the teaching of the famous Eleusinian mysteries. For as this path is the way to the inner life, it is also the path of initiation. 7. This does not mean that psychoanalysis or the study of Alice in Wonderland are equivalents of initiation, but they have their parallels. For a path has many different levels, and each path has to be gone over many, many times before its full significance is gained. Like the Sephiroth, each, in the end, has to be fully understood and experienced. And understanding is not a substitute for experience, nor is experience a substitute for understanding. 8. The aim of evolution is that each spirit shall experience and understand the implications of manifest existence. A knowledge of the Kabbalah is not essential for this, but the Kabbalah is a great aid in that it is reader's aside, correction. The Kabbalah is a great aid in that it is a ground plan of all existence, and so can be used as a tool in the gaining of experience and understanding. Thus, it is said that treading the paths of the tree enables an initiate to undertake the work of many average lives in the course of one life. And this speeding up process is by no means an evasion or easy way out. One can climb the mountain by the slow, broad, easier way, or take the very difficult, shorter, but precipitous ascent. What is gained in time is paid for with great danger and greater effort, and all reach the summit in the end. 9. Precise details of the Eleusinian mysteries have never been divulged, for the practical methods of all mysteries of initiation are secret. However, the aim of all initiation can be summed up in one word: regeneration. 10. Regeneration is the bringing to birth of new life, and so the initiate is often referred to as the twice born, as opposed to the non-initiate once born. This rebirth is the contacting of the personality consciously to the individuality and ultimately to the spirit. The initiate who has the powers of spirit manifesting consciously is known as the thrice born, but this process refers more to the higher levels of the tree of life beyond Tifereth, for that is where the link of consciousness is made, though of course, and the results must be demonstrated in earth. The process of the second birth are summed up in the upward line of the 32nd and 25th paths from Malkuth to Tifereth, their main colors being the blues of aspiration. The first birth is, of course, physical birth, and could be represented by the downward journey of these paths, daily life being under the nadir of these two journeys in Malkuth. 11. The process of initiation can be taught under the guise of various symbol systems, and the symbolism of the Eleusinian mysteries was that of the growth of wheat. Wheat, together with the honeybee and asbestos, are things said to have been brought to earth from Venus by the great Melchizedek. Readers aside, sorry. Melchizedek. Correction. Were brought to earth from Venus by the great Melchizedek. And the mysteries of its symbolism are profound. The symbol of wheat applies to the 32nd path, as the other two symbols apply to the other two paths leading from Malkuth, the honeybee to the 29th path to Netzach, and asbestos to the 31st path to Hod. Each symbolizes a way, but all in the end resolve into a synthesis. 12. The wheat grows and is then cut down, the sacrifice, in more modern terms, of John Barleycorn or even Christ. Again, part of the grain that is not made into food for man is sacrificed by burying it in the earth, but it springs up again in the spring, each grain producing yet more grains. It is cut down again, and the cycle repeats itself with the solar year. This process figures in dramatic form in many earth fertility rites of early and primitive man, but it holds teaching within it of much more than the surface apparencies of sympathetic magic. In the cycle of nature, death leads to birth, and birth to death, and in accordance with the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, the same process occurs in the psyche of man. 13. To demonstrate this fact and the methodology of the Kabbalah, it may help us to examine the myth in some detail. The more apparent meaning of the symbolism is that Demeter represents the earth as Earth Mother, and Persephone the corn, planted, remaining under the earth, apparently dead, until it springs up anew, and Demeter rejoices, covering the earth with growth. 14. There are aspects of the myth, however, which are not so easily accounted for by reference only to the process of vegetable life. 15. Persephone was carried off by Pluto when she was gathering flowers in a water meadow near the cave of Hecate. There is much Yesodic symbolism in this picture, and this is to be expected, for the underworld lies in the subconscious, and the 32nd path leads to Yesod. 16. Yesod is the Sephirah whose mundane chakra is the moon. That is to say, the moon is the heavenly body which most nearly symbolizes the powers of the Sephirah. The moon goddess, Hecate, sitting in her cave nearby, is an evocative symbol of the elements of the unconscious lying in wait. Also, in some accounts, the companions of Persephone were Artemis and Aphrodite. Artemis is again a moon goddess, while Aphrodite, though associated with Venus rather than the moon, is strongly connected with water, being born of the sea foam. There is, of course, an intimate connection between the moon and water plays a prominent part in this myth, for in a probably purer version of it, Persephone's companions in the lush, damp water meadow were the daughters of Oceanus. Oceanus was a very ancient Greek deity. He was a river who girded the universe and gave birth not only to the Oceanids, but to all rivers and all stars, with the exception of those of the Great Bear. Here we are lifted into the supernal regions, the great starry river of the Milky Way, the waters of cosmic space, the great sea, Mara, of Bina, and so on. Oceanus is a cosmic symbol. The strange lands about his outer shores can, on a lower level, be interpreted as the strange worlds of the subconscious, but they refer ultimately to the outer verges of the ring-pass knot of the universe and the subconsciousness of the Logos. 17. The flowers that Persephone is picking are roses, lilies, crocuses, violets, hyacinths, narcissi. For for the most part sweet-smelling flowers, reminiscent of the attributions of perfumes to Yesod. The flower she pulls when the underworld opens is a narcissus, and there is a parallel between the mythological origin of this flower, the youth Narcissus who peered into the pool, the magic mirror of Yesod perhaps, to gaze at himself, and one of the entrance phrases of the Delphic oracle, know thyself, nose te ipsum. 18. The god of the underworld, Pluto, then seizes her and drags her down to his kingdom in a golden car. The Greek conception of the underworld, a world of shadowy figures, gives a good image of the shadowy world of the etheric place represented by Yesod. However, some hint of the potentialities of death is given in the very name of Pluto, which means riches. 19. Meanwhile, Demeter, the mother, sorrows for her daughter and even appeals unsuccessfully to the sun, who has seen all. The sun is a symbol of the individuality, the consciousness of Tifereth, which sees all that occurs to the personality, although it may not have complete or indeed very much control over it. Demeter finally sits in sorrow and mourning by the maiden's well under the shadow of an olive tree. Again, there is much symbolism in this image, recalling the Bina symbolism of the Mater Dolorosa, and the olive tree is sacred to Pallas Athena, then goddess of wisdom, a Hokmah figure. Thus, we have a profound illustration of the workings of the feminine side of God. 20. The well by which Demeter sits is a symbol of the 32nd path and the way into the underworld. And here also we have the water symbolism. The divine sorrow under the olive tree calls to mind, too, another vast complex of religious teaching in that Christ's agony in the garden took place on the Mount of Olives. 21. In the underworld, Pluto gives Persephone a pomegranate, of which she eats, a symbol of femininity and fructification. By eating of the pomegranate, or taking the principle of fructification within herself, she binds herself automatically to return to the underworld every year. For only in the descent into the underworld is new life possible. It requires death to gain rebirth. It is interesting that grief is the experience undergone by Demeter at this time, for grief is also a species of death, a process of fallowing which leads to new life. The pomegranate, a fruit full of seeds, is strongly connected with Yesod. It figured on the tops of the pillars of the Temple of Solomon, together with the images of the cherubim and other lunar symbolism. There is a link here also, of course, with Artemis, the divine huntress, a moon goddess who protected all pregnant beasts. 22. The symbolism of pregnancy and new life was also carried into the Eleusinian mystery symbolism in that pregnant sows were sacrificed. Eleusinian mystery symbolism in that pregnant sows were sacrificed to Demeter, as well as fragments of decaying pork, which were later dug into the ground. Decaying matter is the basis for new growth. 23. Death and decay are under the presidency of the fourth aspect of God, God the disintegrator, the other aspects being God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. On this 32nd path, the symbolism is very predominantly feminine. Thus, the feminine side of God predominates. And instead of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, we have Mother, Daughter, and Virgin Wisdom. In 24. In feminine terms, the fourth aspect is best symbolized by the Medusa, who had a wild, cold beauty that no man could bear to look upon without the shield of divine wisdom of Pallas Athena. Lacking the ability to look calmly and clearly at the beautiful and terrible face, men were turned to stone. That is to say, they fell into the mortal idea of death. 25. As all the gods are aspects of one god, so are all the goddesses aspects of one goddess. And the one god and the one goddess are, of course, the two sides of the one god, the androgynous Elohim of Genesis 26. In the fragments of a rite of Isis given in Dion Fortune's novels, The Sea Priestess and Moon Magic, Aquarian Press, London, the all-inclusiveness of the feminine side of the deity is given as follows. I am she who ere the earth was formed, was Ria, Bina, Ji. I am that soundless, boundless, bitter sea, out of whose deep's life wells eternally. Astarte, Aphrodite, Astaroth, giver of life and bringer in of death, Hera in heaven, on earth, Persephone, Diana of the ways, and Hecate. All these am I, and they are seen in me. And the same source also gives a version of the entrance to the 32nd path. Sink down, sink down, sink deeper and more deep into eternal and primordial sleep. Sink down, be still, forget and draw apart into the inner earth's most secret heart. Drink of the waters of Persephone, the secret well beside the sacred tree. Who drinks the waters of that hidden well shall see the things whereof he dare not tell, shall tread the shadowy path that leads to me, Diana of the ways and Hecate, Selena of the moon, Persephone. 27. In the novels of Dion Fortune, this teaching is given on its most surface levels of sexual polarity. At the time these novels were written, Dion Fortune was concerned with bringing a more open and reverent attitude towards sex, as opposed to the cloistered and sanctimonious attitudes left over from the 19th century. The Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, applies here as everywhere, though. And what is written about sexual polarity in these books applies also to the polarity between higher and lower aspects of the psyche and between God and man, which latter includes goddess and woman, though English grammar obscures that fact. 28. However, while spiritual factors do operate behind the functions of the lower worlds, they should not cause the latter in themselves to be neglected as improper or beneath consideration. It is the etheric polarity of sex which has the directest relevance to the 32nd path, and while a knowledge of the spiritual factors is necessary for understanding of a path, this is no substitute for experience, which when on the lower levels of the tree must and should be of earthy. 29. But the sensory world applies in the main to Malkuth, and to the 32nd path is an inner way, although still very much connected with earth. On the personal level, Demeter is a part of the self, as is Persephone, and indeed all the gods. Categorizing crudely, one could say that in the myth of the sun was the individuality looking upon all that happens as a portion of the personality. Persephone is drawn into the unconscious depths to be apparently destroyed, to the grief of the rest of the personality, Demeter, only to re-emerge later, like the spring corn, bearing life even more abundantly. In Christian terms, the myth is expressed in the terms of the agony, trial, crucifixion, and descent into hell, followed by the resurrection and ascension. 30. The teaching is basic to eternal principles, and so appears again and again in different guises in accordance with the imaginative needs of the times and the nations. It is a process of withdrawal and return, and is dealt with at some length in P.W. Martin's Experiment in Depth, Routledge and Kagan Paul, London, which outlines a method of following the process with reference to the Jungian psychology, the poetry of T.S. Eliot, and the historical work of A.J. Toynbee's thesis is that at a time of crisis in any civilization, certain individuals turn from the outer world to the inner life of the psyche, and discovering there a new way of life, return to the outer world to form a creative minority, which acts as a leaven for the renewal of that civilization. 31. The process is also summarized in a portion of the Rite of Isis. In death men go to her, Persephone, across the shadowy river, for she is the keeper of their souls until the dawn. But there is also a death in life, and this is likewise leadeth on to rebirth. Why fear ye the dark queen, O men? For she is the renewer. From sleep we arise refreshed, from death we arise reborn. By the embraces of Persephone are men made powerful. 32. For there is a turning within of the soul, whereby men come to Persephone. They sink back into the womb of time. They become as the unborn. They enter into the kingdom where she rules as queen. They are made negative and await the coming of life. 33. And the queen of Hades cometh unto them as a bridegroom. And they are made fertile for life, and go forth rejoicing. For the touch of the queen of the kingdoms of sleep hath made them potent. 34. It is obvious from this that the path of return is as important as the path of withdrawal. In other words, the 32nd path has been trodden both ways. The withdrawal from Malkuth to Yesod, and the return from Yesod to Malkuth. This can hardly be stressed enough, for it is the refusal to come down to earth, literally, that is the cause of the bulk of spiritual pathology, the root of sin, disease, ignorance. It is the real blasphemy, a rejection of the work of the Father in heaven, a rejection of the universe. The universe, let it be noted, is the tarot trump of this path. Until physical existence in the universe is reader's correction. Until physical existence in the universe is willingly accepted by the spirit, the initiation of the nadir cannot take place. Malkuth is the gate, the door to evolution, and the work of destiny. Evolution cannot take place until involution is complete. 35. Hubbard has stated that one of the marks of an unaberrated human being is the ability to face chaos or disorder and stick with it. In other words, not to escape into apathy, grief, anger, fastidiousness, intellectualizing, sanctimony, false mysticism, or any other of the myriad methods of running away. As a result of original sin, this planet is in a state of chaos and disorder. It need not have been, but it is, and this fact must be accepted. The initiate of the nadir is the ability to face things as they are, to accept oneself and one's sins and distortions, to accept others and their sins and distortions, realizing that the way each has come is the way each has come, and that mutual readers aside, recriminations or flattering falsifications will not help matters one hair's breadth. 36. This attitude has been put forward by writers such as Nietzsche and Whitman amongst others, together with a certain amount of varying personal distortion, and it has of recent years even become something of an intellectual catchword, acceptance. This is laudable in its way, but This is laudable in its way, but the acceptance has to be a complete and true one, an attitude of the whole being, not a posture of the mind, for the initiate to be a real one. 37. The exemplary way was shown, of course, by our Lord in the Garden of Gethsemane. And he said, Abba, Father, all things are possible unto thee. Take away this cup from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what thou wilt shall be done. In other words, one must be willing to face and go through with one's own crucifixion before the subsequent resurrection and ascension can be achieved, and all without fear or attempts to propitiate one's own particular Herod, Pilate, Caiaphas, or mob, objective or subjective. 38. The symbols attributed to the 32nd path confirm this process. The key to the path is the letter Tau, meaning a cross. The cross is not only the cross of Calvary, but the equal-armed cross and the Tau cross. The simple cross of equal arms is the point, a symbol of spirit and light, extended in 4 directions, light in extension. It is also the cross of the elements being a reflection in Malkuth of the 4 holy living creatures in Kether, which appear at the corners of the tarot trump of the universe. This card is also called the Great One of the Night of Time, and one of the contacts of this path is the contact with this Great One, who can be considered Godhead itself. The small fragment of God consciousness assigned to each man is the holy guardian angel, and the knowledge and conversation of which is the spiritual experience of Malkuth. 39. The Tau cross is a 3-armed cross, that is, a cross without the upper bar, and besides being the male or virile part of the Egyptian Ankh, symbol of life, it also signifies 2 forces impacting on a higher level and producing a form on a denser level. All form is built up of opposing higher forces locked together. The shape of the letter Tau suggests the letter Resh, meaning a head, but with a downward extension ending with the virile Yod. Thus, it can signify the spirit or head, a Kether symbol, sending its force downward into densest manifestation. The downward projection could also be likened to an inverted letter Vav, meaning a nail. This suggests the spirit nailed to the cross of matter. To put it in rather grim terms, This suggests the spirit nailed to the cross of matter, to put it in rather grim terms, but terms which serve to show the parallel between cosmic and Christian symbolism. Being upside down, as the vow is a symbol of sacrifice or reflection, exemplified, for example, in the tarot trump of the Hanged Man, and it is also a visual representation of the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below. 40. The astrological sign of the path is Saturn, a sign composed of the cross and the moon, and thus apt for the linking of Malkuth and Yesod. Saturn is considered to be the planet of restriction and limitation, and therefore implies form. It is also a planet of supernal contacts, however, and so, as with Malkuth, there is an intimate connection between this path and the Sephirah Binah, the mother of form. 41. The sickle is also a symbol of Saturn, as implied by the shape of the astrological sign, and this was the weapon with which Kronos castrated his father Uranus. Here again, in symbolic guise, is the limitation and constriction of spirit into time and form. The sickle is also the reaping instrument, recalling the wheat and grain mysteries. Reader's aside here. The sickle, it says, Kronos is time and castrated his father Uranus, which is space. So we see a creation of time and space, or time castrating space. I'll read again. 41. The sickle is also a symbol of Saturn, as implied by the shape of the astrological sign. And this was the weapon with which Kronos, time, castrated his father Uranus, space. Here again, in symbolic guise, is the limitation and constriction of spirit into time and form. The sickle is also the reaping instrument, recalling the wheat and grain mysteries. 42. The fact that one's final journey up the 32nd path will be in the process of physical death is emphasized in the fact that the popular figure of death is a skeleton holding a reaping hook. Father Time is another popular figure similarly equipped. 43. The tarot trump of the universe shows a maiden dancing within a framing wreath, usually holding a rod in each hand, and with images of the 4 holy living creatures at the corners of the card. There is a scarf about the maiden in the shape of a letter Kaf. said to conceal the fact that she has male genitalia and is thus really readers aside, this is a tough word, hermaphroditic, a hermaphrodite. Okay. Traditionally, the letter Kaf means the palm of the hand, which, according to chiromancers, reveals character as well as past and future. Its full implications are perhaps best elicited by meditation upon the 21st path and its other attributions, of which Kaf is the Hebrew letter. 44. The figure on Trump 21 can be considered to be a symbol of the soul as feminine, or the spirit as androgyny. The androgyne can be referred to the machinery of the universe of Yesod. The rods, often spirals, may be either the positive and negative modes of force which make up manifestation, or the principles of involution and evolution. In brief, this card may be said to represent spirit taken on form in the frame of manifest universe. In Eastern terms, Shiva dancing. 45. The Yetziratic text of the 32nd path, which describes it as the administrative intelligence, indicates that the spirit should be in control of the whole of the 7 vehicles of man, represented by the planets. In etheric and physical terms, these have their analogues in the chakras and the endocrine glands. 46. We have analyzed the path at some length with reference to Greek mythology, but there are parallels in other pantheons which could equally well be explored. Demeter has some very obvious links with the Egyptian Isis, the putting of a king's son in the fire at night to give him immortality, for example. Isis, of course, also searched for her lost husband Osiris, just as Ishtar descended into hell to find her lover. But the mythological threads are so numerous that it is impossible to follow up each one in detail. This must be left to the initiate of the student. Correction, this must be left to the initiative of the student. But once the general principles of the path are realized, it becomes relatively easy to follow out the traditions of mythology and folklore that relate to it. The Kabbalistic correspondences often appear in the most unexpected places. 47. There is, for instance, the great Maro dance of the Indonesian archipelago, where the divine maiden, Hanuwele, is, reader's side, I don't know this word, Hanuwele, is depicted descending into the earth at the 9th of 9 sacred dancing places. The dancers form up in a 9-fold spiral about a maiden standing by a deep hole in the ground. The dance commences, and the dancers perform a labyrinthine dance about her, getting closer and closer until she is pushed into the pit. Then, with a loud sacred chanting that drowns the maiden's cries, the earth is heaped upon her and stamped down firmly with the dancing feet. Truly barbaric. 48. A full account of this dance and its attendant symbolism is given in Jung and Carini's Introduction to a Science of Mythology, printed Routledge and Kagan Paul, London, Pantheon, and by Pantheon, New York, together with an analysis of the whole Greek core tradition, which is of course very germane to this path. The symbolism of the 9 is interesting, as the 32nd path is intimately related to Yesod, the 9th Sephiroth of the Tree of Life. 49. The Saturn Binah symbolism of this path relates closely to the Divine Mother, the feminine side of God, which in pre-Christian times was the vehicle for worship of the second or love aspect of the deity, now known more generally as the second person of the Trinity, the Son. The full descent of the Spirit into matter is exemplified by the crucifixion, the beautiful naked man of Yesod on the Tau or cross of the 32nd path. The path represents, therefore, the first stages of devotional mysticism, as well as a way into the inner planes and the unconscious mind. Its main lessons are ascending, the existence of the causality of these things on a higher or deeper level than the physical world, and descending, the acceptance of densest form limitation by the Spirit, summed up well in Thomas A. Kempis' Initiation of Christ. If it be thy will, I should be in darkness, blessed be thou. And if it be thy will, I should be in light, be thou again blessed. If thou vouchsafe to comfort me, be thou blessed. If thou wilt have me afflicted, be thy equally blessed. Book 4, Chapter 17. All right, everyone, this concludes my reading of the 32nd Path, Malkuth Yesod. We find this in A Practical Guide to Kabbalistic Symbolism by Frater Gareth Knight. And I would suggest listening to this one over and over again until you actualize or instill the 49 sections in this, the 32nd Path of Malkuth Yesod, into the mind, and that you start to digest them. Obviously, this can take some time. Again, I suggest reading it on your own and getting yourself into a trance state so that you can bridge the gap from Malkuth to Yesod successfully and freely back and forth, right? This will open up a lot in terms of lucid dreaming and gathering of the shadow memories first thing in the morning. I wish you good luck on the pathways of the Magi. And thank you for coming along on this, the 100-Day Magical Challenge with me. Please check me out on www.buymeacoffee.com/Frank Monday and put a little something in the tip jar. You know how that helps keep the lead in the pencil and the pep in my step. Y'all good looking sex people, stay well out in happy land. And much love from Frater Francis Aristaeus of the OTA coming at you. Until next time, good magic. Become a member of the Lunar Light Entertainment Discord.